Daylight pierced the vessel. One was in the sky. I beheld the star of Ramphine with a million questions why. But if it helps you sleep, you can picture me and the bottom of the sea.
Israel's port city of Eilat, one of the Middle East's hottest spots, following a blockade of the Gulf of Aqaba by the United Arab Republic. 10 years ago, Israel went to war over the same blockade, which cut off oil pipelines to Haifa refineries. Oil tankers and vital shipping arrive at this important city. The provocative war of nerves causes Israel to call up army reservists, ordering them to active duty to augment the regular 70,000-man Israeli armed force. Premier Levi Eshkol says Israel has no intention of attacking its Arab neighbors, calling for a mutual reduction of Arab-Israeli forces massed along the border. But, taking no chances, tank units go through battle maneuvers in the Negev desert.
On the 2nd of June, Prime Minister Wilson of Great Britain was welcomed to the White House. The visit had been arranged some weeks earlier to discuss the urgent problems common to both governments. However, a crisis, one that developed with dramatic and startling suddenness, would be given priority: the recent impasse in the historically explosive Middle East situation.
We come here today in another time of trouble when peace and justice are again in the balance. And it is on occasions like this that the counsel of an old and trusted friend is most welcome.
Israel, facing yet another climactic point in her 19-year struggle for survival, saw not only the threat of maritime blockade, but to some dire prophets, the threat of extinction. With the United Nations peacekeeping force withdrawn, with all attempts at private negotiations failing, solutions through diplomacy and United Nations intervention seemed increasingly remote. The time for talk was over.
My name's Commander David Lewis. In 1967, I was the research officer of the research ship Liberty, HETR-5, and I was also the OIC of USN 855 that had its own direct link to National Security Agency and Naval Security Group Command.
My name is Robert Scarborough. I was a communications technician seaman aboard the USS Liberty.
My name is Harold Eugene Six. I was a communications technician, 3rd class, worked in cryptology. I was 21 years old and was born and raised in Wyoming and joined the Navy in California.
My name is Donald Wayne Pogler. I grew up in Wamego, Kansas. I live in Westminster, California. I was 21 when I was on the Liberty.
My name is Terry L. McFarland. My rank on the USS Liberty was an E4. My rating was a CTR-3 at the time.
Well, my name was Ronald Kukal. I was 28 years old when I was aboard the ship. So I was in charge of the T branches.
My name is Bryce Lockwood. I am from the Southern Tier of New York. I was in the United States Marine Corps, signed on temporary duty aboard the USS Liberty.
My name is Ernest Gallo. I was a communication technician, maintenance, 2nd class petty officer.
My name is Larry Thorne. I'm 21 years old. On board the USS Liberty, I'm from Staples, Minnesota.
My name is Philip F. Turney. I was a third-class ship fitter aboard the USS Liberty, June 8, 1967.
My name is Larry Lloyd Bowen. My rank is CTR2, that's Communications Technician Radioman Second Class.
My name is Mo Schaefer. I was 20 years old when I was on the USS Liberty, and I'm from Buchanan, West Virginia.
William LeMay, Electrician's Mate Second Class. I boarded this ship in 1966 until the attack in 1967.
My name is Jack Beatty. I'm from Fraser, Michigan. I was 18 years old when I showed up for the Liberty, USS Liberty.
Before the Liberty, I was at Naval Security Group headquarters, 3801 Nebraska Avenue, Washington. I was a lieutenant, and I was told that I'd have to have my card punched by sea duty if I ever expected to get promoted. The billet on the Liberty was open, and I requested it, and I got it. I thought it was a beautiful new ship. I didn't realize at the time that it was taken out of mothballs and completely rebuilt, but it looked brand new to me. I was the head of the research department in the ship's hierarchy. The XO and the CO are senior to me.
I got transferred to the USS Liberty. I went aboard it in 1965. And I thought it was, when I first saw the ship, I said, wow. And everybody told me we mapped the bottom of the ocean. I said, well, all the antennas are going straight up. How could we be mapping the bottom of the ocean? But I was a stupid, dumb kid. And then it took me about a month or two, and I found out, Jesus, why did I believe that? And because it was so secret.
Well, virtually everything that we did was either secret or top secret. We were reading other people's mail, basically, and we didn't want them to know that their mail was being read.
I'd had no idea what the mission of that ship was. I knew the ship was involved. It was a intelligence collection ship. It looked to me like a cargo ship rather than a major combatant. But I soon learned that at one time it was a Victory Hull class cargo ship that had been converted into a Navy intelligence collection ship.
When I joined the Navy, I was told I'd never go to sea, that the CTMs never went to sea. Unbeknownst to the person giving me that advice, in 1964, the Navy commissioned 5 ships for CTs. So when I talked to the dispatcher, all I could think of was Vietnam. So I said, I'll take anything on the Atlantic. And I'm thinking of all these shore stations that I could possibly go to. And I was married. My jaw hit the ground when I got orders to go on board a ship. That was a shock. Believe me, it was a total shock. I went on board the Liberty. Greenhorn, I mean, I didn't know a darn thing about serving on a ship. So I had a lot of learning to do real quick.
Orders came down for all the MR guys and everybody on the ship. They were going to go to sea. So I had a friend up in the personnel office. He said, "Hey, Larry, I got orders for you, and it's on a submarine rescue ship." Well, I kind of looked at that, and I went over and looked at it. It was just the one that had a hand grinder on there. That was all they had for anything for a machinist to do. And I said, well, isn't there anything else besides this piece of crap? He said, I don't know, I'll take a look. Well, I got one ship over in Little Creek, Virginia. It's called the USS Liberty. It's a GTR-5, whatever that is. So I said, okay, we'll take a look at it. So a buddy of mine took a truck and went over to Little Creek And boy, I said, look at all that. Look at that ship. Boy, that's the Liberty, man. It's got a lot of stuff on it. Look at all this antennas sticking everywhere and clean. Wow, look at that baby. So we walk up and the guy says, the permission to come on board? And he said, granted. He said, are you a pollywog? And I said, excuse me? He said, never mind. Big deal. Pollywog, what's that? I soon was to find out. When you get on that ship and you go across the equator, everybody has a good time, except for the pollywogs. If you were a pollywog, you had it. You were done. The shellback was gonna kick your butt. The crew had changed completely. They were dressed like pirates and beat us up like pirates. And they kept notes of what they didn't like about you for the last 2 months, so they could get you in front of somebody to kick your butt against for all these things they didn't like about you. And when you crossed the equator, they were beating your ass. Then you were given a little certificate. Well, thank you. It's like getting beat up for a piece of paper.
I pulled a 45 at our initiation. They were determined they were going to kill this one chief champion. Yeah, they put him in the slop chute and lifted both ends up, so he was under 50 gallons of swine, slop, garbage. And they were going to let him drown. They hated him so, and this was their opportunity to get back. I ruined their plans.
They shaved your head. They put you in rot gut crap. They kicked your butt. And you stood up and you got your ass beat right back down to the deck.
It was two different crews aboard the Liberty, the Spooks and Ship's Company, and I was in Ship's Company.
When I came on board the Liberty, I just thought it was another Navy ship until they started talking about the spy part of it and all that. We'd start eating and all that, and they'd talk about, oh, look at the CTs over there, the nice treatment they're getting compared to us and all of that stuff.
That was always a problem. The ship's company always felt that the CTs were prima donnas and were treated better. I tried to make sure that anything that I was involved in, I had some of both. I know it never disappeared. Phil Turney is always pulling my leg about CTs and the treatment they got, but I didn't treat them any differently. There was an occasional growl breakout, but nothing major.
They were just, they go into the rooms that had combination locks on the doors, and I never was in one of the rooms, and I hardly knew what they did,
It was kind of abusive then with kids, because we'd tell them that we have pool tables down in that room you can't get into, and we have a bowling alley down there. We had all these things down there, so that that's going to cause a little dissension.
I think we were very jealous of what we thought their life was like compared to the life we had. And we thought they were snotty because they wouldn't talk to us during lunch. And usually on a ship like the Vulcan, I spoke to everybody on the ship, no matter what department they were in. These people didn't socialize with us.
Many old seafaring traditions still survive in the modern Navy. And that's nowhere more true than in the wardroom. Who eats at which sitting? Who eats where?
The CTs, we weren't allowed to talk to each other. We didn't talk to them, they didn't talk to us. That's just the way it was. I wish it would have been different. It was a strange deal. Two different crews on one ship. Our job was to take care of them. That's our only job, was to make sure the CTs could spy. And we were the most sophisticated spy ship in the world at that time.
The ship's company people knew that anytime the ship moved, it was because of the communications technicians, because what we did was why the ship was being positioned any place that we went. And I think that's why there was a certain amount of animosity between the communications technicians and ship's company. It shouldn't have been that way, but it was.
NSA, to me, is the one that really funded our ship, and they did the things. I mean, I wore a Navy uniform, but we were actually working for NSA there to be intercept operators for them. Another interesting point, too, is the captain did not have a need to know on our ship. He didn't have a clearance to come in past their front little room and know what Dave Lewis knew.
I'm positive there was no one that had higher clearance than I had. Some of them may have had different clearances. I went down to my quarters, and pretty soon there's a knock on the door. I mean, Captain McGonigal wanted in. He hadn't gotten his clearance, and I told him he couldn't get in. He said, well, he'll bring some Marines then. We got him his clearance pretty fast.
We set out early May 1967. We started out on our African cruise, and our first port of call was Abidjan, Ivory Coast.
Typically, our cruises were about 3 months to 4 months in length, and then we'd come back in port for a month. Our normal complement of intelligence personnel or communications technicians was somewhere in the neighborhood of 185 to 200, and then the rest of the ship's company was roughly 100 personnel.
Well, our assignment was basically find out what is happening politically on the west coast of Africa. We were supposed to look and see if there had been any governments overthrown, any Russians involved, Cubans involved, anything of that nature. No Israeli or British Commonwealth link was ever assigned as a target. And if on the search position you identified something as Israeli or British Commonwealth, you were to drop it immediately.
We had a huge basket on the back of the ship called Trescom. And Trescom is a very sophisticated piece of equipment. Based on the moon's position, we could beam information, obviously high intelligence information, back to NSA.
Yeah, the system was it operated at 3 gigahertz at 10 kW. It was like Buck Rogers. What can I tell you? It was very exciting to be a part of that.
Satellites in orbit, a ground network consisting of 4 tracking stations, 2 injection stations, and communications, operations, and computer centers, and navigation sets aboard units of the fleet.
We were a very slow ship. We cruised up and down the coast of Africa to copy anything we could get, so you went slow so that it, something became interesting to copy, that you'd stay in the area and copy it.
Well, I was in charge of the T branches. The T branches actually stands for teletype back there. We handled a lot of the teletype communications, not the Morse code stuff, but the teletype.
You're intercepting everything you're instructed. In other words, you have a specific agenda. When you go to work, you're told exactly what channel to go to, what you're going to do. Now, as a code copier, I can't read what I'm copying.
Yeah, we had senior guys on the ship that would take their crack at trying to decipher what it was, and then we had guys who then sent our data directly to NSA, and the NSA guys would try to decode it.
Other teletypes on the encrypted Orestes net scatter out messages between ships in the task force.
We were in port in Africa. All of a sudden, all hell was breaking loose aboard the ship.
Our orders were to the Eastern Med, post haste.
There was a gal by the name of Jean Dixon who made a prediction that we had all heard, that there was a ship that was going to get in a lot of trouble in the Mediterranean.
And everybody was skeptical about it. Everybody was nervous. And when we got emergency orders out of Abidjan, everybody said, this is it.
They got everybody back aboard. In fact, there was one they were going to leave, but he got there just in time. he caught the ship. We were underway, full speed, top speed, fast as we could go, into Rota, Spain. We didn't know what was going on. We had no clue what was going on. They didn't tell us.
We had left Abidjan quite quickly, which was unusual for the ship to take off as fast as we did.
We did not cruise the Mediterranean at all, so it was highly unusual.
It was very unusual for us to be diverted to, Rota, Spain, to pick up additional supplies and personnel.
We didn't know we were going into a thing called the 6-Day War because we didn't have news channels or any of those things to let us know. So we didn't even realize the 6-Day War was going on.
Reveille, reveille. All hands heave to and trice up. The smoking lamp is lit in all authorized spaces. Now reveille.
The tenseness was immense because nobody knew what was going on. We can't tell you where we're going. Tell your families, we don't know. We don't know when you'll hear from us or whatever. So think about that for kids on there of not knowing, even the officers on the ship not knowing. So you go to them and ask what's going on, and they can't tell you. So, and then we picked up, I think, 5 or 6 people there, and from NSA. We picked up a couple of Marines. We picked up a couple civilians there that were linguists, so we knew something very interesting was going on to bring them on board.
If you get a reassignment in the middle of a transit, you also have to pick up new collection information when you get to a place like Rota. So I suspect when we got over there, we probably brought in new classified information that gave us target information as well.
The Liberty picked up a total of 6 linguists at Rota, Spain on the morning of June the 1st of 1967. There were 3 Arabic linguists from the National Security Agency. They were civilians. There were 2 Arabic linguists from Second Radio Company in Camp Lejeune, North Carolina. And I was the 6th. I was a Russian language specialist. And it was a part of the mission of the USS Liberty is the impending 6 Days of War of 1967 to make sure that whatever foreign powers were involved, that there was a record of what they were doing. And that was the purpose of myself. And there were 2 other Russian linguists also assigned to the Liberty.
We were given orders to go to an area off the coast of the Sinai. And as soon as we got it, added to the mystery of what was going on, as soon as we got into the Mediterranean, we picked up a Soviet destroyer that shadowed us. And they just were always there. Every day, every night, you look back and there was a Soviet destroyer following us. It was our shadow.
I thought, boy, this is not a good place to be going. And Captain McGonigal had been running general quarters drills every other day. Once he realized we were going into the Med, Captain McGonigal had asked Admiral Martin for a destroyer escort, and he was denied. Martin came back and said, you're not a warship, you're not a likely target, you don't need an escort.
I can't imagine, unless it was because of malice aforethought, that the COM 6 Fleet didn't automatically provide us an escort. Since they hadn't provided an escort, I requested one and was turned down. 4 40mm machine guns and our 6 M1s, we couldn't do anything to defend ourselves if anyone wanted to attack. So it's rather disconcerting to go in the middle of a war with no ability to protect yourself. We were going where no one had ever gone before. We were dealing with volatile military on both sides, and we were going in the middle of it.
War in the Middle East. Israeli forces drive spearheads across the Sinai Peninsula, west to the Suez Canal, South to the entrance of the Gulf of Aqaba, breaking the blockade, Israel's new defense minister, General Moshe Dayan, hero of the 1956 Sinai campaign, was instrumental in mapping his nation's battle plan. The sudden swiftness of the Israeli army crushed UAR forces with a combined air and ground 1-2 punch. Egypt's charges that U.S. and British air units aided Israel are vigorously denied.
Flash message at this point. I suggest we read as follows. Dismayed by preliminary reports of heavy fighting between Israeli and Egyptian forces. As you know, we've been making the maximum effort to prevent this situation. We were expecting a very high-level Egyptian delegation on Wednesday, and we had assurances from the Israelis that they would not initiate hostilities pending further diplomatic efforts. We've been talking about it in these terms. It is probably better for us to get some sort of a message of this sort before the question of who really was responsible is completely clarified. To let them know that we were not a party to any of this business at this stage. But I wanted to get your own reaction.
Yes, I would.
All right?
Yes.
All right.
What does it appear to you? Does it appear to you reasonably sure that these tanks kicked it?
Well, the fact that the fighting has been occurring initially over Egypt is a little hard to sort out.
Do they say to us that the Egyptians kicked it off?
Well, they're both publicly. We have no message yet from the Israeli government except that they've asked for a meeting in the Security Council. We've had no direct message from Eshkol or Eban or anybody. Both publicly are claiming that the other started it. But the Israeli claim that a big tank column was moving toward Israel and that they went out to meet it, again, looks just a little thin on the surface. My guess is the Israelis kicked this off.
Sure.
All right, sir?
Yeah.
Thank you.
The tension in the Middle East over the Gulf of Aqaba blockade develops into full-scale war, with reports of heavy fighting between Israeli and Egyptian forces along the Gaza Strip and the Sinai border. Earlier, the U.S. aircraft carrier Intrepid steamed through the Suez Canal, although no American units are alerted. Our State Department says we are neutral in word, thought, and deed. Israeli Chief of Staff General Yitzhak Rabin visits and inspects troops in the Negev Desert near the Egyptian border. A UN ceasefire request is supported by the U.S., while Russia accuses America and Britain of encouraging Israel to attack.
June 8th, 1967 started out like pretty much any other normal day.
It was, it was such a beautiful day. It just was gorgeous. I don't remember it being hot. I don't remember it being cool. It just seemed like the perfect day. Blue skies.
Well, we pulled into the Sinai Peninsula area. I mean, it's, you can see things going off. You can see where bombs have gone off. You can see smoke and so forth. I can tell you, we never felt threatened by anything.
The day started in a routine manner, just like it always does. The reveille, you're up, you shower, you shave, you go to breakfast, you go to work.
As we got closer to the Eastern Mediterranean, the skipper came on and said that we were entering into a hostile area. We went into what was called a wartime cruising condition for the ship.
I guess we realized there was something heating up in the Middle East.
We knew that the Israelis had complete air superiority. We also knew that that the Israelis had taken the Sinai. So really, our mission was redundant. We were in the area that we were told to be in. The Israelis had control over it.
We made our usual rounds, about 4.5, 5 knots, going up and down the coast, picking up signals out of the sky. I mean, it was very legal. We weren't breaking any laws. We were in international waters at all times. 12.5 miles off the coast.
Jimmy Cavanaugh, my buddy, and I were told that day to get up in the basket and clean it. huge basket on the back of the ship called Trescom. And so we're up there right after breakfast, and it's a spectacular, beautiful day. We get in the basket, they lift it up some so we can be there and really working around with our brushes or whatever, getting the salt off and keeping it clean. And all of a sudden, a boxcar flies very low around the plane, and enough where you could see cameras hanging out the doors.
It was rather brazen. The Star of David was well marked on the wings as they surveilled us. We could see the cameraman in the bomb bay doors of one of the planes with his camera out photographing us.
We started seeing more Israeli aircraft circle the ship over and over again. A flying boxcar, which is a twin-engine plane, and it got fairly close. And then we had the smaller planes that would circle the ship. That's, we waved at them. And we were pulling for the Israelis because, again, we thought they were our best buddies.
I went topside to take a look, and he was only about 200 feet above the water. And as he went over, you could see the pilot, and he waved back and rocked his wings, and all of it was very friendly.
We thought there was no problem. We were glad they were there because they could identify us. We had a 5x8 flag up, brand new flag, because we wanted to make sure that everybody knew we were Americans, because we didn't know if the Arabs were going to come get us.
At least a half a dozen times, Petty Officer Rowley was called to the bridge with his camera to take photographs of these aircraft that were coming over.
I could see explosions on the beach. And so things were happening on the beach. We were close enough that you could see stuff was going on.
We were all pumped for the Israelis to kick the crap out of the Arabs. That's what we wanted. Everybody wanted to have them win.
My position was a very active position that day. In fact, when I went to Chow that day, I went to Chow with my buddy Bob Eisenberg, who was a linguist, and he spoke 4 languages. Bob was a Jewish man, so he spoke Hebrew. He and I went to lunch at about 11:30. And my mission that day was copying an important target, military target. And Bob was telling me at lunch that what I was doing was extremely important. He says, I don't know who it is, but somebody's going to get it. Apparently it was being referenced as the target, but not identifying the target in the message traffic.
I worked for a few hours, so probably till about 11:30, 12 o'clock, something like that. Got a little chow. Then we had a general quarters drill.
And I was told it was for chemical warfare. You do different procedures depending on what the attack is.
With 100 degrees out there or more on the hot deck, and pretend like I'm washing down the ship to get the chemicals off of it.
The GQ probably took 45 minutes to an hour, I'm guessing. And after it was over, I went up on the main deck and I wanted to see what was going on the beach now. And on the 04 level, we actually had a Carbonac searchlight. So I was going up there, and while I was up there, I wanted to check the beach out because I was nice and high and could see pretty good. And there was a binocular up there that I could look. And as I was getting up on the 04 level, a jet fighter was flying along the right side of us. It was black.
And all of a sudden, whoosh, and I see this jet going right over.
There was no markings on that one, I remember that. And he was flying 50 to 100 feet above the ship. I could see the pilot quite good.
The sound-powered phones weren't working, so I went down the starboard ladder. Just as soon as I got in the hatch, the thing blew up.
And there was an officer, Lieutenant Todd. His duty was to report any plane that flew by. I turned around to talk to him. I said, "Did you see that fighter?" And he goes, "No, where is it?" And as I turned to point to the fighter that I had seen, another one came from the bow to the stern and strafed us.
And this chief, or he's a first class then, he grabbed me by the back of the shirt, man. He says, "Get in here, we're under attack."
Quarters, general quarters, all hands man your battle stations. Quarters, general quarters, all hands man your battle stations.
When I first heard that, and the rockets hitting,
it sounded like someone dragging an anchor chain across the deck. I mean, dragging it fast.
And all kinds of stuff. And I got covered with shrapnel.
The fear was intense because the first thing you knew is how do we defend ourselves?
You've got to be scared. They're trying to kill you. Who wants to die at 21 years old? And there was kids on there that was 17 and 18.
I mean, I didn't know exactly how to handle it.
You know, so I'm thinking, who's shooting at us? Why are they shooting at us, or who?
I was stunned like everybody else was. We were under attack from who? From what? You know, it was, I guess time kind of stopped.
Captain McGonigal got on the 1MC, which is our internal communications, and said that we were under attack
by unknown jet aircraft.
The aircraft that was doing the attacking were blackened aircraft. There were no markings on the aircraft at all.
They shot all of our fire hoses up so we couldn't get water to put the fires out. Anybody that showed up on deck was hit.
Our postman named Spicer, he takes a direct missile.
Look at these guys. I mean, God, there was guys that were mutilated.
I remember seeing 50 caliber shells and tracer bullets coming through the skin of the ship.
The original attacking aircraft were French Mirage, and then they sent a couple of Mystère, and they dropped the napalm canisters. The outside of the ship, the superstructure, was on fire.
It was so hot that it was peeling the skin of the ship off. I knew exactly what it was because I couldn't put it out. It had to be napalm. And there were, you know, it burned a lot of people. You could smell human flesh burning.
Constant fire, yeah. Trying to put fire out, napalm fire. It was chaos.
First strafing run, they took out 5 of our 6 HF antennas. They took out the Triscom. They took out every means of communication we had, except for that one dead antenna that Terry Halbardia used.
Getting any antenna up that could get a signal out was absolutely critical for us to get any kind of support.
Terry decided he was going to run a piece of coax wire right to the base of the antenna.
His name was Terry Halbardia.
He was an electronics technician, and so he had subjected himself to being shot at to go connect that antenna. And that was the antenna that we eventually communicated with the 6th Fleet to tell them that we were under attack.
At that point, the only thing that I had heard is that help is on the way. And what does that mean? I didn't know. How would we know there's a fleet that's 20 miles away or 400 miles away? And what's that mean? So, but we certainly expected help.
I definitely was wondering where on earth the United States Navy was with their ship being attacked ruthlessly like it was. They were beating on us for, I guess, an hour before we got the signal out.
Most of anybody that was up topside was, they were out there recovering wounded and carrying them down to the mess decks and just trying to, fight fires, because we had, wounded and fires all over.
I was ordered to go on the main deck and see what I could do to help anybody out.
I remember getting up there, just somebody opened the hatch to the bridge and said, he had a guy on the stretcher and said, here, take this guy below.
There were guys laying on the deck everywhere. We pulled them in, threw them inside the hatches or whatever, and the guys that were in the starboard gun mount I just left 5 minutes ago were blown to bits. I ran out of CO2 and I said, Captain, I'm gonna go down and see if I can find some more CO2. And I looked at my buddy Brown, and he's one heck of a man, just a great, great man, a brave man. I walked by him and we didn't say a word to each other. We just looked at each other's eyes. I went down, it wasn't 2 minutes. I came back up and my buddy Francis Brown lay dead on the deck with the back of his head blown up and his face swelled up, and his eyeballs were that big around.
When the attack first happened, when I got shot the first time, my left leg had been shattered, the knee. I couldn't stand anymore, so I fell on the deck. And as I'm coming around the corner, this shipmate goes, hey, are you hurt? Timmerman, I think, was the shipmate's name. I looked up at him and I says, no, I like crawling on the deck. We both laughed. I just can't believe that we actually laughed. And then he turned me over and threw a tourniquet on my leg. And as we're coming around the corner, the corpsman came by and said, take the tourniquet off his leg. We don't want him to lose his leg. And they put me on the deck. And as he's taking the tourniquet off my leg, there's a massive explosion right above us. The rocket came through the overhead, a piece of it put a hole in his arm that you could actually look right through. That's when I got scared and figured we're not going to get out of this alive.
What was going through my head were thoughts of how this was going to end. I did think about that. I prayed. I said the Lord's Prayer.
I went down to my duty station on the general quarters and would take my position in front of my R390 receiver that we had there to intercept the code that my job was to do, and waited for instructions. I don't know there's a napalm on top. I don't know what's going on. I can't see anything. I was visual to begin with, but once down there, you're in your tomb, so to speak, if that's the case. Which became a tomb.
The Israelis were using rockets and 40mm cannon fire. Every time one of those shells would strike the ship, it was like you were on the inside of a large steel cylinder with someone beating on it with a sledgehammer, and just the whole ship would ring.
You could hear it on the earphones, all the people talking from these repair parties, and they got a fire, they got casualties, they need help, da-da-da-da-da. And I could hear it, the shells hitting the side of the ship. Cannon and rockets, whatever they were using, you could hear that. That was loud.
The last things we heard were the bullets piercing, coming down into the lower spaces, and then it all stops.
This is where it's getting the hard part for me. Getting close to where the torpedo comes in.
If the plane softened us up, and they used all the stuff they had. They were unmarked. Like I said, we didn't know exactly who was attacking us. But these torpedo boats, that's when we knew it was the Israelis, when the torpedo boats got there. We saw the Star of David on the torpedo boats, and we thought, wow, this is cool. They're coming to help us.
Captain McGonigal then reported to the crew,
"Stand by for a torpedo attack."
I looked at Jimmy and I says, "How the F do we prepare for a torpedo attack?"
All I could think of was how many of my troops are going to suffer the prime casualty.
That was the scariest part of it all.
When I heard the announcement on the 1MC of the torpedo attack, I had to get into prayer if I wanted my life to be saved.
Prepare for a torpedo attack is something different for brace for a torpedo attack. And that, when you hear brace, we knew it was about to happen.
There's no way out of this room, and it's going to hit on this side of the ship. We're all going to die.
To be honest, I thought we were dead. I was praying, this is it. I mean, when your time's up, your time's up.
When I shut down from prayer, I went to my desk, and a voice that I don't know if anybody else heard said, "Get down and get down now." I don't even know where it came from.
Maybe it was 10 seconds, but it seemed like 10 minutes.
I mean, this was it. It's all over, no more.
Yeah, we're all petrified. I mean, I'm a kid, I'm 21.
I thought life was over. The first thought that came through my mind, I said, well, Lord, I guess I'm coming home.
Every second was an hour.